It's 7:48. We're going to call to order the F&B meeting on a new link. And so this allows us to get done with some business anyway that was on the agenda. So I'm going to hand it over to Jenny so we can go through some minutes, move them, and approve them before we're joined by others. Sound, Jenny.
Sorry. Do we need to make a motion to amend the agenda so the minutes get approved first, or does it matter?
Yeah, that makes sense. I make that motion.
Thank you, Bert. Who was second? Charles? Okay. So we're circulated the minutes from the September 6th meeting. I don't know if anyone has any questions. We had already approved the amended meeting minutes from the 31st, which all we did was change a link and update some language around attendance. So we don't need to do that, but we do need to approve the meeting from September 6th. Any questions or comments? Nope. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from September 6th? Iris. Second from Peter. All in favor? Jack, all in favor?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Minutes are approved. Okay. Now it's Jack. Right? We can't hear you.
You're on mute, Jack.
Sorry, I was communicating with Adele because they figured out who's the manager of that meeting. And so they're on the old one, but I'm not going back. I told them we'll join them later. All right. Let me go and give a quick introduction. Some of this we've already covered before, but as you know, we created the matrix that I think will now be called the RTM scope document for the committees. And from there, we read the descriptions. When I read them, I was gobsmacked from some of the things that were there. I referred them to Kate Bush. Her mouth even dropped further to the floor. And then when we started working on the descriptions, it reminded me of the old, my first real contract with Chase when we were buying a bank, when the head legal counsel was talking about one of the contracts where somebody was questioning cause, and he said the first thing you learn in law school is read the whole blooming thing. And he used another word other than that. But the fact of the matter is that when we read the whole Appendix B, we realized that it was far outdated. And just the description for Public Works, they had the incinerator there, which was taken down in 1993. And what's worse is most of this was written in the mid-70s. There was a minor modification in the mid-80s. And the last change was in 2005. So almost 12 years after the incinerator was taken down, it is where the swap shop is now. They still hadn't corrected this. So we started to meet and rewrite some of these things. And so we've been meeting with several committees. As we get the information from the committees, we have been making changes. And so in reality, this is how the RTM will operate. It also didn't have a lot of FOIA going on, so we've incorporated FOIA, and it never really said we're following Robert's Rules of Order. So it frequently said a meeting with a quorum. Well, if we're doing Robert's Rules of Order, it's not a meeting unless you have a quorum. So those words came out. Then we saw things like the standing committees will only act upon an affirmative vote of the majority of its members, but that's not true. When we vote on contracts, we vote not to reject. And in fact, in the stable leases, the committee, not only us, but other committee also acted on a negative vote by the committee. So that whole passage is out because it's covered in Robert's Rules of Order. So what I'm going to do is run through. If there's any questions or other things like that, shout it out. I'm not calling on people. Just say, Jack, we want to do this, and then we'll go through it. On the original document, we had taken out the part that there will be one person from a district on every one of the committees. That has been added back in, so each of the districts will have at least one of their district members on each of the committees. However, the time that the district allocation is happening, that may well, person who is assigned may have the name open, because if you have 15 people in a district, but you only have 13, there may be some open spots, and that's where those people will subsequently fit in. Some of the other things is we've added in that the Rules Committee shall designate an acting moderator, not all vice chairs like to moderate a meeting. And it can be the same person, but if not, we've done that in the past. We talked about how we get the moderator, because the old rule said that you formed a committee that was headed by the moderator to elect the moderator, but in fact, they had to recluse themselves to begin with. But as long as I've been around on rules, what happens is we go to the vice chair and say, please get names that people who want to are interested in it. From there, if the vice chair is also interested in being moderator, it goes to the acting moderator. If the acting moderator is also the same person or interested, it goes to the rules clerk. And if that person isn't there, somebody from rules who isn't running for moderator gets and gathers the names. They do check to see who's interested, just in case, somebody says, I think Bert should be the moderator. And then Bert goes, wait, what are you talking about? I don't want to be a moderator. So the other thing is nominations can come from the floor, which has always been the case. The last thing about that is that if you are declining to run, you get to say, I regretfully decline, and you don't get to do a 5-minute speech about why. We move on. That's part of what rules has decided. I still use it as the term the matrix, and that's because what it was, but it really is a standing committee's scope. And so that was pushed out to the committees, saying the committees are responsible for identifying new ones or ones that have expired, and they go to and it gets reported into the Rules Committee. The document going forward is managed by rules. Oh, and so people coming on, so I'll just hold off for a while. All right, Al. Oh.
Hi, Jack.
We a little bit started, but I'll go back and reiterate what went on quickly, because we didn't get too far in. A little bit of background, and I apologize because Bert said he doesn't like listening to me once, and now he's going to have to listen to me twice. say the same thing. This really started last December when we created
I think my people are just on my people.
I'll wait.
Hang on, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I think we're getting more. I can hear you, yes.
Okay.
Not very loudly, but I can hear you. That'll do. but I think my people are just joining in. I'm sorry, everybody. If they're looking at their emails, hopefully.
Yeah, that's right. You
Jack,
had Susan Marks and
why,
she left.
Jack, why do we have two committees on this call? Don't they each vote separately?
We're not voting on anything tonight. We're just reviewing the document.
Okay.
Tell me when you're ready, Adele.
I don't have a quorum yet, Jet. Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I'm close.
Well, if we're not voting, we can still operate by going forward and treat any of your questions from any of your committees as guests of F&B, so we can
I
move
think we.
forward.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Let's start.
All right. I'm just going to review what we went over for your committee, and that will allow other people to join. This really started last December when we created the matrix, which really assigned all the departments, all the boards, all the commissions, all the advisory groups, all the grants, and other entities that or organizations that operate with the town to the various RTM committees, identifying who was primary and who was secondary. And it had been something actually that we had a conversation with the late Mark Thorne, probably about 8 years ago. He and I talked about it. And from there, we read the committee descriptions. Committee descriptions, as I said, the term is really the British term gobsmacked when I read them because they weren't accurate. And then I showed them to Kate, and her mouth even dropped more than mine did. And we sent it out to the district chairs and the department chairs to get feedback. We got some feedback. And during the summer, Frank Kemp and I were assigned to just sort of move this forward. So we started reading the descriptions because that's all we were really initially worried about. And then when we read the whole section, we realized it was far outdated. And it wasn't accurate in how we were running, and it wasn't accurate on how we wanted to run. Some quick examples were, I mentioned this to my committee, but I'll mention it really quickly. This section was written in the mid-70s. There was a modification in the mid-80s, and then the last one was 2005 minor. But in 1993, the town demolished the incinerator, and it still was in the description for Public Works that they were supposed to be monitoring it. And as I said, if anybody, I was in town, I didn't even know that we had a incinerator there. Somebody had to point out where it was. So we decided that we really had to rewrite certain things. It also said things is that we all know that the moderator says at the end of committee reports, are there any other committees that want to report? Well, according to the old ordinance, that wasn't really allowed. Matter of fact, people who on your own committee that had been working with the Park and Rec Commission on the playgrounds or any of the other subcommittees that are done, unless that was authorized by rules in the old ordinance, you weren't supposed to do that, which isn't how we want to operate our organizations. So we started to look at the whole thing.
Okay,
And
all right. Meeting
what
is-
we've been doing is
Thank
the approach is to meet with rules,
Thank the other guy, but
and
thanks.
then
Okay, fine.
okay, and then we're meeting with all the committees, getting feedback from them, and it's a living document. It's constantly being modified and changed based upon the feedback that we're getting. And so we have already met with rules. We've met with Public Works. We met with. We're meeting tonight with Park and Rec and F&B. On a Monday, we have Public Health and Safety, and then we'll set up a meeting with PZNH and Education. I've already spoken to Edward Shecker to set that up. So here's some of the highlights of what's going on in this document. I'm going to start on page 1. Initially, we put that we had taken out that there has to be a representative from each district on every committee. We had enough feedback to say put it back in, and we did that. Even though at the time that it's allocated, if a committee only has 13 members and they're supposed to have 15, they can use the name open for the spot on a committee so that all are represented, and that's a common practice. Going to page 2, we added in acting moderator. We actually had that once before with Joanne Hennessy was the acting moderator because the vice chair wasn't comfortable running the meeting. So we added that back in to codify that. We had a method to select the moderator that actually had the moderator organize a committee to solicit names, but then as soon as the moderator wanted to run, they had to recluse themselves. So and that's what was in the old thing. And the new one is we're operating the way we always did it, at least since I've been on rules. And that is the vice chair of rules solicits names. They say who's interested. From there, if the vice chair is interested in being the moderator, there's a succession list listed in here, so there's not a problem on who's going to be run it, but it's independent. Of course, things can be nominated from the floor, but Rules has definitely decided that if somebody is nominated from the floor and they're saying that they don't want to run, they get to say thank you, but no thank you, but they don't get time for a speech. The moderators are only getting 2 minutes if they want to run. So we talk about the matrix, which is really now the scope document for the standing committees. And, you know, some people thought it would be 5 or 6, but it's about 150 different organizations. And we're pushing that out to the committees to maintain what their scope is. So if there's a new committee that comes up, then they're responsible for reporting that back into rules because rules will own that document going forward and publish it on an annual basis right after the election to all new members. If new ones are, if ones that existed are now going part, my understanding is that in maybe 6-7 months, the Oxbridge Building Committee will be disbanded because their work will be done.
Yeah.
Then it's the responsibility to say this committee isn't here. So we're constantly keeping it updated.
Yeah. I know.
So as it says that standing committees are responsible for reviewing. Something else that we got from last night's meeting that we're going to incorporate, we just have to figure out exactly how we're going to do it, is all the standing committees will have access to the department chairs and their relative reasonable access is the words we're going to be putting in. And in reality, that already occurs. F&B works with Jan and Kate Park and Rec works with Pam. And that's not to say that we're over occupying, but we need to have it in there. The difference may be on the budget, because most recently, I'm going to say in the last 3-4 years, it used to be, and Susan, I don't remember if this was done when you were still there or so, on the Board of Selectmen, but in the past, it was always the superintendent's budget. When the Board of Ed finally approved it, it was their budget. And after it was approved by the Board of Finance, it was their budget. And then because F&B is the liaison, we introduced the budget. We're the liaison to the Board of Finance. However, it really wasn't being considered as if it was the town administrator's budget. I mean, even though the first selectman works with it, but it's really the town administrator's budget. And what was happening is some of the departments and some of the people were running to the department chairs, especially if there was a discrepancy, oh, we wanted this, and the town administrator said no. So we do have access to department chairs, but during the budget process, our focal point has to be the town administrator until such time as the Board of Selectmen approves. Then when the Board of Selectmen approves, it goes through the same process. It's the Board of Selectmen's budget, then the Board of Finance's budget. So while we will have access to department chairs, we're not supposed to end run the town administrator during the budget process. Susan, you had a question. I can't hear you. Susan, I can't hear you. Nope. Check if your sound on the computer is off. That happens to me frequently.
Is there a chat feature?
What?
She could put it in the chat.
Yeah, can you put it in the chat?
There's a chat icon in the upper right-hand corner. You can try.
I'm going to just continue, and when Susan gets there, then we can either does chat or that, then we'll respond. FOIA really wasn't being addressed in the prior ordinances. So we have on one of the statements here that the RTM Rules Committee, Standing Committees, and all other RTM committees shall comply with the Freedom of Information and Robert's Rules of Order. Now, elsewhere in the ordinances, it says that we do Robert's Rules of Order, but they thought that they had to put down what edition, and those editions changes. So the ordinance currently says 10th edition, but I think we're up to the 13th and 14th. Okay. So we're going to continue on this.
We know about time for more game. Let's begin. If a girl dyes her hair blonde, girls just want to have fun.
Okay. We identified the committees that currently exist, but as somebody mentioned, at the Rules Committee discretion and the subsequent vote of the RTM, the Rules Committee may add, delete, and or combine standing committees of the meeting. And that actually happened a lot of years ago because it used to be health and safety used to be two separate meetings, and that committee got all combined together. So we then consolidated certain areas on how this gets done. And there's certain things that are consistent with all committees. I'm going to page 5. Where am I now? Okay, that's page 4. Page 5. It's the committee's responsibility to maintain communications with all relevant boards and other committees, departments within their scope. That all the standing committees comply with state laws, codes, requirements, regulations, town charter, and ordinances. That all standing committees are responsible for monitoring the areas. And we cover some of the budget areas with the knowledge that the RTM is one of the budget-making authorities in the town, which is consistent with every other town that has both an RTM and a Board of Finance. All right. Going down, if there is any questions, and I know Susan's working on it, but if anybody else, please shout out, because I'm just going to keep on going. With the exception, this is something new, and not that it's been a major violation, but it has on occasion. With the exception of standing committee chairs, RTM members are requesting that want to speak with town council should notify and obtain approval from the moderator prior to such consultation. Now, if you're working on a project and there's 2 or 3 of you, then as long as your chair knows that you're going to be speaking as a working group, you go on and do it. But the chair should be letting the moderator know that we're speaking at some time. But you don't need prior approval for that. But it's to stop the one-off conversations that go to some of the town councils for future reference in that. Does everybody understand that? There's no problem with that? When we got to education, we started to look at the definitions and realized that the only one who was liaisoning with anyone was the F&B liaisoning with the Board of Finance. But that's not really true. All the committees have a liaison responsibility besides all the other subcommittees, commissions, and other things that existed within that matrix. So for the education liaison with the Board of Ed, and to be responsible for following, monitoring, and reporting all related educational matters. F&B liaisons with the Board of Finance, responsible as a primary committee for introducing indebtedness resolutions in the town budget, including calculating the mill rate, and any of the governmental accounting standard board matters initiated by the time. The Financial Budget Committee is secondary on all financial matters described in Section 3C, which is what I talked about, all the things that are going on, where the committee is not identified as primary by the Rules Committee. So when we did this, we realized that actually the library was primary to F&B because it didn't fit in anyplace else. Park and Rec, liaison with the Park and Rec Commission, including but limited to following monitoring and reporting regarding maintenance and operation of town parks, recreation facilities, and programs and other areas assigned. So let me explain the 3 things: following, monitoring, and reporting. Following just means that you're keeping abreast of what's going on in any of those committees, and hopefully this encourages engagement and empowers the committee to do so. Monitoring means is a little bit analysis. So you're following, then you decide if there's some analysis, that's the monitoring, and you report on it either because something is on the way to being done or that there's a resolution or something else. And, when I'm saying this to the Park and Rec Committee, I almost feel like I'm preaching to the choir because I know you guys already do that. So it's just codifying things that many of the committees already do. Planning and zoning, liaison on the land use boards, public health and safety, is liaison to relevant boards regarding public safety, health, social services, and emergency management, as well as the other areas there. Public Works is liaisons to the Department of Public Works. They also have a liaison to the Parking Authority, Sewer Authority. Plus, there's a whole slew of other things that Public Works does, as all the other committees do. TGS&A, as we know, is responsible for the ordinances. We took out something that said they were responsible for the working conditions of our employees, because that was written long before we had an HR department and was far out of their authority anyway.
Jack, just on something. Susan, do you want to try dialing in on your telephone so you could talk to us? Like you can stay on here and then just use the number for your telephone. I'm assuming you can hear us.
Yeah, Susan, can you wait? Yeah.
It's just a thought. I mean, some people sometimes have to talk on their phone. Okay.
Something new that we've heard frequently. If you look at the screen, Jenny has put the access code. It's in the chat.
Hopefully that's the right access code with your new link, Jack. May want to double
Should
check
be.
that.
There she is.
That looks like Susan is there.
Good, perfect. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I thought I was all set. I just wanted to compliment you guys first that you guys have done a phenomenal job on all of this. And when I looked at it all, I was looking at it from the perspective of having served on the Board of Selectmen for 6 years, and I know a lot of people on the RTM have been on different boards, so I may repeat a few things that you guys have already covered, and I really, really apologize. But for example, when you go to the definition, and I know you started talking about this, of the different committees, I think you nailed it up 500% when you said education, liaison with Board of Education, and responsibility, blah, blah, blah. I think that's phenomenal. So I was confused as to why, like for Parks and Rec, it wouldn't be liaison with the Parks and Rec Commission and be responsible for following, monitoring, and reporting on all related parks and recreation matters. Like, I think that just, it's so simple if you can just repeat that throughout most of the committees that it works with. I don't know if there was a reason why that didn't happen, but it just, to me, it's simple, it's clear, and my concern, which is what I started to say, is having been on the Board of Selectmen, the more interaction that RTM members have with the departments directly, I even as a Board of Selectmen member used to say to the first selectman, I'd like to discuss blah, blah, may I have your permission, or is it okay if I go in? Because if a lot of RTM members, and they certainly mean well, but the more they go into whether it's the director of the department or other people, it's taking time away from work that they could be or should be doing from the direction of the Board of Selectmen versus the RTM. And I know we need to all work as one, but I think it becomes a very slippery slope as to, are they getting their direction from RTM subcommittees or from the Board of Selectmen or from the first selectman or from the town administrator? So,
Susan, before you go to the next thing, I'm going to tell you I fully agree with you. And that's where I was trying to explain that definitely in the budget, we had people that were end running. And that was something new that just came up in last night's meeting. So similar to what we did on the legal, where with the exception of standing committee chairs, that the standing committee chair should be able to speak to a director, not employees, should be able to speak to the department directors or have access to them. But I agree that it's reasonable access because, quite honestly, I know you're saying they're working for the Board of Selectmen. The reality is they're working for the town. And if people are bugging them, then they're not doing the job of which they're being paid to do. They're not here to just answer everybody's question. So I think that's I'm trying to look at you and you just switched on my screen. I think that's well put. And we have to wordsmith that a little bit to come out, but definitely on the budgets, it's supposed to be directed to Kate and other things like that. So there is differences when you're working on a project. You may be working with various people within a department, but other than that, that's a project that's been assigned or a resolution. So I agree with you fully on that, Susan.
Okay. Yeah, and I know each committee is a little different because some, like Parks and Rec, we have a commission. But like with the Public Works, when you say liaison with the Department of Public Works, the director, that's when I just get concerned that it's a town hall employee, and how much push and pull is that employee getting from RTM members? That's the concern.
It's really part of it's also, and this is the difficult part in writing these. Sometimes you're writing it because, and I'll use two people that Well, there's something a project I have to do with Kate and Jen. F&B has to do with Kate and Jen and Tony Hemmicky. And Kate, Jen, and I always talk about you have to write the new ordinance that we're going to be creating, not with the idea that Kate or Jen or Jack Davis or Tony Hemmicky is going to be there in the future. So right now with our department chairs, I mean, obviously there's communications between Adele and Pam as well as Adele and the commission. And, Jeremy always answers, is that PZ&H? Ed shows up to many of the meetings, which is maybe just the access of what's needed on what's going on. So it is a thin line that we're saying, but we also don't want them to be, there. So the word reasonable is there. And quite honestly, if I think that people start to violate that, we've had board chairmen or department heads report back to standing committee chairs saying, enough is enough. So I think we have to figure out what that balance is. So, we still have to work on the verbiage. So I'll pass it to you when we come up with it. I'm sorry, go to the next.
Okay. And then what about my idea about the liaison with Parks and Rec? Just to simplify, to use what you guys did with the Board of with the Education Committee to carry that down through other committees.
The fact is that there's some nuances there. So and I think that's what people want to do. There is because of the liaison relation, I can speak about F&B. Because of the liaison relationship with F&B has to introduce any resolution that has to do with bonding. Doesn't mean we give the detail on it. The other standing committees give the detail on what it is, but with the introduction, what the cost is, anticipated cost, and other things like that, is done by F&B. So there are some specifics that need to be there. Park and Rec is responsible for all facilities with the exception of. So we want to make sure that those exceptions are codified. And that's why education has a rather large board, so you can sort of get away with it without that further definition. But, Frank and I will talk about it and see what the group thinks.
Okay.
So I do like simplicity, but
Yep.
since there is some definition that has to be there.
Okay. I don't know where you guys left off before I interrupted, so I apologize.
No, that's fine. I was waiting to see if there were other comments.
I'm going to
I have other
comment.
things down the road,
Hang on,
but
can you
yeah.
hang on?
Okay.
Hang on a
I
second.
have,
Hang
I
on
have
a
a
second. Let me finish. If you're going to do that, because I guess I really hadn't paid any attention, then, obviously there are Park and Rec liaisons with the department head too. So maybe it should be consistent. That's it.
Wait, I'm sorry, Adele. Say that again. Something just dropped.
Well, obviously we not, liaise with the Parks and Recreation Commission, but we also liaise with the Parks and Recreation Department. So.
But that's part of the thing is that Public Works really doesn't have a commission, and the only
Okay.
to intercept. So that's where we directed them because they don't have a board commission or other thing to which they're responsible for. The department is in the scope document of what all the committees have, so it's already there. Plus a couple of others that there because you also do 5 Mile River and a couple of other things.
Right. Okay.
Cheryl.
Susan, could you please repeat what you had said? So I didn't write it down. I wanted to figure it out by writing it down.
Oh, for Parks and Rec, what I had said for that.
Yes.
Basically, you go right to education. It's the same thing. So I said liaison with the Parks and Recreation Commission and be responsible for following, monitoring, and reporting on all related park and recreation matters. And I kind of played around with the word matters, or so it's very simple because Jack, the part of the whole thing is to try and help new members understand what they're supposed to be doing. Correct? That's part of this whole thing.
Well, it's also to say how yes, but that's not the primary. This is the ordinance defining how the RTM will run and some of the nuances associated with it. So the commission, the different departments currently have different responsibilities. Just not new members. I can do a memo. This is the ordinance detailing how the RTM will operate. All right, we'll continue then. One of the new things, and this came up on page 8, part 4, section 4. People have the perception that the RTM shuts down for the month of November and December. And part of it is that's how some people like it to be. But the rest of the town is working. And the RTM needs to work also. And part of the confusion was, well, after the election, there aren't standing committees because they haven't been organized. But that's not right. So, and I spoke to Kate, and Kate said that really the committees, and Wayne agrees that the committees are still in existence. The members on the committee are still on that committee, serving on that committee, until their successor is named at the rules organization meeting. So obviously anybody who did not re-up or wasn't reelected, they're not part of that committee. But since about half the RTM is elected in any one year, and then other people are added, you're on that committee until that organization, which means the committees and the committee chairs can still report on matters, and that's going to happen. It happened in the last couple of years where we brought things forward in November, one at the end of November, one before. This year, we're going to have a union contract that we're going to have to report on. So rather, we don't need to say, well, the prior committee said. No, that committee is still in existence until the new committee is formed. Now, obviously, quorum changes because if a couple members left after Election Day, then that's the new committee for at least reporting on that. So that's a very important thing because it says the RTM can still operate and will operate not only in November, but in December at the state of the town. I'm on the bottom of 8 and I'm moving, pardon me, I got to get there, to 9.
Jack, I have a couple questions on 9.
Page 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
can I go through it
pretty-
first and then ask the questions?
Yep. Sorry.
It just basically says that they may adopt some of their own procedures not consistent with the rules, that they will elect shall combine the town. That let me just make sure. It will have the election. This is something that we didn't add in. It's something that was consistently there, and that is it really had gone away, but it just so happened that Kate, myself, and Jay-Z all rose to chair or town administrator at the same time. And that's where the buddy system started, which has now expanded to include members. And many of you have worked at least on the Park and Rec, where members of the Park and Rec Committee, members of F&B, members of the Board of Finance all work together in examining the budget. What really happens is that this said that the F&B committee was to designate 1 or 2 of its members to liaise between it and the standing committees as to financial or budgetary matters throughout the year. And so that really still happens because, like Park and Rec, Barry and Jenny still communicate with you guys on Park and Rec issues, and that happens on other committees as well, where the people who have been assigned various responsibilities throughout the year communicate with the committees. And it was decided to keep that in because it really supports the buddy system. Lastly, we're taking out that the moderator may attend any meeting. We're saying the moderator may attend any executive session of any standing committee, special committee, or ad hoc committee. And that's just to codify that, because anybody can attend any meeting based upon FOIA. But it was really that if for some reason there's an executive session, let's say in PZ&H, and the moderator, currently Seth, was at that meeting, he could attend the executive session. So that's giving him the right to do it so people aren't saying, well, I don't know if you can be here or not. So, and that's been cleared with town council. So that's the first part, Susan. So if you have questions on the first part, shoot it.
You almost took the words right out of my mouth because I was going to say why the moderator versus any member because it's an open, so perfect. The only other question I had, and maybe you can give me an example of what an executive session would be, because it was my understanding, and please correct me, that executive sessions were for personnel matters or real estate transactions. And I couldn't think of a RTM committee that would be dealing with either a personnel issue or a real estate transaction. I mean, I guess ethics can go into executive session because that could be. But could you think of another? You just mentioned PZ&H. I mean, that they wouldn't be.
I have 2 words for you, Susan, that answers that. Great Island.
Jack, it was the Board of Selectmen that negotiated the purchase.
Like, why would Susan? You weren't part of the RTM. All of our committees, when we were discussing that, had executive session to discuss certain aspects of it that was not open to the public. So
that's great. I just wanted an example. Perfect.
Yeah, that's the perfect example, and I expect that to continue as new things come up. Alicia,
thanks.
Can you?
Hi. So I'm on Parks and Rec. I was part of a executive session. I was dialing in from my phone. I had some very legitimate questions about the purchase of Great Island. but because it was a real estate transaction, I was told I couldn't ask any questions, and I was denied answers to my questions. So I don't know.
I can't respond how to put it. I'm going to put this as nicely as I can. I am not responsible for some of the behavior of others at meetings.
I think
I guess
particularly the legal counsel.
there's certain aspects that even in the F&B meeting, we did not get all of the answers we had desired, but we were able to at least ask questions. All right. They were
I was
still,
denied the right to ask questions. I asked very sensible questions that needed to be asked and should have been answered for the town. So I question this.
well, I'm just saying that this allows the executive sessions to occur. I can't say, and I'm not going to comment on whether or not everybody felt there was as much transparency. I've heard both sides of it on that transaction. But you know, I anticipate that there is the capability of having future executive sessions on what's going on. And, you know, this is something that you're going to have to speak with town council. I'm not an attorney, so I can't answer that.
I'd be happy to do so. And I'm not going to say any more tonight. I won't waste any
No,
more of
no,
y'all's
please. I'm not shutting you down. Please.
I would actually relate this to a point that came up earlier that I feel like is contentious, where the RTM committee members are not encouraged or allowed to contact commission members except through the committee chairperson. That's just not a democratic process. So I'm just going to lump those two in together and say they're undemocratic.
I will say that committees operate differently. My committee knows that, you know, just sometimes give me a heads up that you did it, and I don't want to be. I don't want somebody asking me for permission to do something because, you know, there's a lot of things going on besides just. I do have a little life outside of the RTM, and not a lot, but a little. And I could be with the grandkids. And if I'm with the grandkids, I'm not picking up your phone. So just let me know that you're made that communication with somebody. So, you know, people operate different. Some boards want differently. So on the Board of Ed, and we don't have access to the superintendent or to the CFO. We have to go through the chair of the Board of Ed to ask questions. That's how they operate. Other areas.
I'm so sorry, and this is so rude to interrupt you, but I understand that completely for Board of Ed because they're operating under state and federal laws. But these are our own. These are our own, like, sort of town. I don't know. I guess we're talking about just courtesies. But to make a rule that someone who's on a committee can't reach out to a member of the commission is strange to me. Anyone can reach out to anyone on any commission or any committee anytime because you're a resident of the town of Darien. So I don't understand why we need this rule.
All right.
Hey, Jack, is the document actually telling us that we can't reach out to someone else?
No, it's in fact.
I know committees run differently, but does the document itself say we cannot reach out?
No, it does not.
If the document says we cannot reach out, then I think that should be eliminated. But if it's the way committees operate, then that's the committee's issue.
Right.
Can I just ask you who determines that? Like, who's the one that determines those rules?
On how a committee operates?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
That would be me. And so
Well, I
Let's
think it
have
would be
this
the
discussion
committee.
in our committee meeting, not while we're in a joint session.
Okay,
If
I didn't know if
anybody's
it was
got some
part of these
issues, then we'll talk
larger
them out.
rules.
Okay, guys? All right,
Right,
let's
I
just
just
move
didn't know.
on with this.
I didn't know if it was part of this larger rule document, that's all.
Right. No, we're not.
No, it's
in fact-
not. No, it's not.
Right. Part of what this document is trying to do, and for the most part, this is, and Frank's been very kindly silent on this. This is something that started with Frank and I looking at it. We brought it to rules. We brought it, and we're taking a lot of feedback because this is not the document that was originally created. But one thing that is maybe a little bit of Jack Davis is I believe we've changed a lot of the authorities of rules, saying no, the committees can do things at their own discretion. So as I said, that when Seth, our moderator, said, is any other committees want to report? Well, the old ordinance said you couldn't. And I'm saying, yes, you can. And there's various initiatives that have gone on. One with Jenny, we analyzed the bonding versus accruing for fire engines and brought it to the Board of Selectmen and then to the Board of Finance, and that went through. There's projects that are being done at Park and Rec, I mean, Public Works that have done that. You guys yourselves work on various things that people go and investigate. And so I believe that oh, I'm hearing myself because somebody's there. I believe that all the standing committees are independent entities and they should be able to pursue and do analysis. Only because we don't have a lot of staff. So sometimes we do some good analysis or participate with others. So that's just my philosophy, and that's what we're trying to convey in what we're writing here. But still be reasonable and not occupying town employees' time because they still have a job to do, where they're being evaluated whether or not they've accomplished their goals. Kim, I saw your hand raised.
Unmuted. Jack, this is Frank.
Right.
Is the topic of conversation that we just had is addressed on the top of page 9, section 5, second paragraph. So it would seem as if a committee is free to establish the rules for the conduct of its business, not inconsistent with what rules says. So I just wanted to see if as a result of this discussion, we may want to alter that paragraph or leave it alone, because that gives the committees empowerment to set things up as they will. So I just wanted to bring your attention to that paragraph.
I'm for leaving it alone because each of the committees have to determine what it is, and I don't like pigeonholing every committee into what we believe now. Let them decide, the group of people that are there decide how they want to operate. But then I'm going back to you, Kim, you still have your hand raised. Oh. You're okay? Your sound isn't on.
I asked the question already. I just don't know how to take my
Okay.
hand raised down.
That's fine, Kim. Neither do I. So we're in the same boat. Okay. One of the things that they had in the old area was that the moderator assigned committees. Well, that's not true. The Rules Committee assigns committees to each item that comes before the RTM. So we did a little modification that says the Rules Committee is responsible, but there are times that in the absence of the Rules Committee, should there be an emergency meeting or something, that the moderator has the authority to assign committees to do something should the Rules Committee not be able to meet. I'm on 10. This is part of where we're getting into.
Jack, you might mention the final paragraph, which has to.
No, I'm not there yet, Frank.
Unmuted.
All right, all matters pending before a standing committee. Frank, you gotta shut your town off, otherwise I echo. Any matters pending before a standing committee may, by vote of the majority of its members present at any meeting, be brought to the floor for the discussion at that meeting or by requesting the placement of the matter in a warning for a future meeting of the RTM. So that's where analysis that a committee might do can be brought forward to other boards or be brought forward to rules. Perfect example is some people were not necessarily happy, and I'm not taking a position one way or another, but the whole conversation of what happened with the SSOs resulted in public health and safety, F&B, and education having a joint meeting with kindly Dr. Adley and Chief Anderson participated and others participated in the meeting. And it was a good meeting because, you know, if I'm in a Board of Ed meeting, I can make public comment at the beginning or at the end. This meeting ended up, because it was an RTM meeting, having a good conversation on those things. And then it was brought, rules decided because of that to bring it to the floor of the RTM to have a further conversation on that. So that's things, I'm only using that as an example, not saying one way or another of what the position was on it, but that's part of the empowerment of the committees themselves. And, you know, F&B has done that. We've worked on cleaning up the reserve accounts. We've worked on doing it. Now, usually we try and do it in conjunction with the Board of Finance, but that's not to say that we don't do our homework first before we bring it and say, hey, can we jointly look at this? The next one is any committee may, on its own motion, consider and report to the RTM upon any matter not referred to it, but which is within the function and responsibility of said committee. Any questions or disputes concerning such function and responsibility or scope, which is where we're probably going to change it to, of any standing committee shall be decided by the Rules Committee. So if there's a question, it goes back to rules because, again, rules controls the scope, and at the end of the day, rules controls the ordinance that governs the RTM. So before I go into the last one, are there any other questions on that? Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, Jack, this may not be a good example. That whole paragraph makes me a little concerned because is this implying that there's no dollars assigned to, let's say the education committee decides they want to discuss high school start time. You know, that's, to me, that's really a Board of Education issue. And if they feel that they need to discuss that here, that's not really, that's one example that I think could end up going down kind of a little bit of a path that may not be productive. But if there's money associated with something, for example, I was watching the Public Works meeting the other night, and I know they had this subcommittee of pedestrian infrastructure, and they were talking about sidewalks, and you know, they were saying that we need more sidewalks. So to me, that's a huge budgetary item, and it's just a small piece of things. So how do we make sure that if a committee wants to bring anything, anything in the world, that if there's money attached to it, the RTM doesn't have the authority, as far as I know, to bring something forward that has a budgetary implication.
That's not true. That's not true. So let's first start with what the RTM is, and I know that there's certain individuals who don't quite understand this. This town is a three-legged stool. Whether or not it's the Board of Selectmen or or Education, the Board of Finance, and then the RTM. And so it can't just be that the RTM is reacting to everybody else, and it hasn't been. There's things that have come out of various committees that really we're bringing forward to those other areas, those other boards or the things like that, that have that discussion. Now, I'm not going to say that the start time is necessarily a positive conversation, and there may be some money, but we're not limiting what the RTM can talk about and say that every other board in here can talk about anything they want. That's not how this is working anymore. The RTM has the right to bring up topics. Now, where we have financial, there is no budget unless the RTM approves it. We have the right to change the mill rate. And by changing the mill rate, we can actually change what income we say are coming in if we are not comfortable with the revenues being recorded by any of the groups. Now, on the Board of Education budget, not that I'm proposing to do this to any of the budgets. I'm just saying what the rights are. We have the right to change any of the bonding or to turn down bonding. We have the right to take back authorized bonding. So if we authorize $10 million and it's not spent, we can decide, oh, we don't want to do this anymore. And, that appropriation and the bonding comes away. Again, not proposing to do that. So there's a lot of powers within the RTM that we have. Now, I'm not saying that every discussion is going to be productive. The SSOs, the decision was already made. The SSOs were being hired. There was nothing that was going to be done at the SSO discussion that was going to change that decision. But what it did do is give a lot of people an opportunity to voice their concerns, voice their opinions, voice their things, and feel that this was a participatory consensus of the town. And it allows, on certain times, people have said, well, our committee discussed this already, or our board already discussed this. Well, the difference is at your board meeting, I don't necessarily, or any member of the F&B committee or the RTM, don't get to ask questions sometimes. When we're asking them to come into the F&B or the Park and Rec or the Public Works, that's now our meeting, and we get to ask questions. Now, doesn't mean we're going to get answers, as it was said by Lisa, there's certain things we're not getting answers on. But this is empowering the RTM. And yes, the moderator and rules, for it to go on to this, the rules have to believe that it's a worthwhile conversation. All right? But this is empowering committees and people to do work and even challenge things and bring it forward. And I know that is very upsetting to some people. And
Jack, you made some really good points.
I have 3 words for that. So be it.
So I just want to make everyone, because I don't know a lot of people that are on this call. You and I have gone back for almost 30 years, which is kind of scary to even admit. So I'm not implying, first of all, the RTM is a critical piece. Yeah, a critical piece of the stool. My concern is, and I'll use pickleball for an example. Everyone on Parks and Rec knows that I'm a huge pickleball player. So if the Parks and Rec committee really wanted more pickleball courts, we don't have the ability to. I mean, we can certainly say that we would, study it, we can do whatever, but it's really up to the commission to put it in the budget. That's my point. That was what I was trying to say. There are certain things that, and we do need really good discussions. SSO is a perfect example. I think one thing that we need to make clear from an RTM standpoint, we can discuss that till we're blue in the face. But the bottom line is the actual final decision lies with the Board of Education. That's not to say we shouldn't discuss it, but if RTM members think that they're going to discuss it to change what the Board of Education wants to do, that's misleading in my opinion, maybe not in others. So whether it's pickleball or sidewalks or, there's a public works capital budget and the sidewalks are laid out in there. Many of us may think we need a ton more sidewalks in town. So I guess the bottom line is we don't have the ability to add in millions of dollars to that budget to make sure that we get a sidewalk. That was the point I was trying to make.
You can have that discussion and bring it forward. I mean, I sat here for years watching the Board of Selectmen manipulate the accruals for fire engines when the budget was a little tight, so the accrual that we guaranteed we were going to make like a loan all of a sudden was cut. And so we said that's not right, because all they were doing is kicking the can down the road to meet a budget number. And I didn't think the accrual was worthwhile anyhow, because it was going into an assigned balance, and based upon the cost of fire engines, could have ended up with $15–20 million in assigned fund for what was going on. I also am not in favor of me paying for a fire engine that we may not be buying for 25 years, because I'm going to be in the ground probably at that time. So it has, we did an analysis with the bonds. We brought it to Kate and Jen. Jamie liked it at the time. I'm just mentioning people. This isn't political. We brought it with Jamie. We presented it to the Board of Finance, and we had it reviewed by town bond counsel for its review. And so that's something the RTM brought forward. And with the exception of one that we had money in there, the town now will be bonding fire engines. So yes, we can't specifically add to the budget, all right? And especially in the Board of Ed, where they're not beholden to us because we're doing an appropriation. But we definitely can influence. So there's some things that, yeah, it may not be the best conversation to have, all right? But there's other analysis that's being done that if they're going and doing an analysis on sidewalk, and there's like, this is the third generation of that great committee that went on the pedestrian. I believe Bert von Stubenagel was a member of that. And it was a great, you were on the board at the time. I think that was 10 years ago or so, maybe longer. But that was a great glide path for what we were looking at our sidewalks. There was another study done, and now we're at the next generation of this, of where it is. And maybe it convinces the Board of Selectmen to do it, or maybe it convinces somebody to take some ARPA money out to use it, because we have some of that. So I think this analysis from members of the RTM to express their opinion representing the town is important. And yes, not every one of them is going to be important, but it's a worthwhile endeavor, and it keeps people engaged. I'm not here to put in the time that I do, nor do I think anybody else on this call is here just to pad their resume or be a rubber stamp. So there's a lot of qualified people in this town who don't have the time, because there's only a limited number of elected officials from that, but have great ideas, great thoughts, and we can influence. And so if nothing else, we're just influencing. So, I mean, I'm sorry, I'll get off my soapbox, which means I'll get a little lower, but you know, that's my perspective of the RTM.
Well, and I'd like to just add also, it's not just perspective. I mean, when we work alongside the other boards throughout the whole process, they're getting feedback from the legislative body, right? We're representing, you know, our body. We're supposed to be representing our districts and our constituents as well. And when we work together throughout the process, not just react to budget decisions, we are influencing, and in the end, and we've seen this in the last couple of years when the RTM has disagreed with some decisions that have been made, and we do have budget, we have some authority to not approve the Board of Ed, which I've never seen that happen, but we do have the authority to not approve a Board of Ed budget. And then we also have the authority to reduce the Board of Selectmen budget. So I think I think this exercise is to realize, as Jack said, it's really to remind people that the RTM is a really important piece and can really influence and make decisions for the town with respect to the budget and the mill rate.
and help out as analysts. I mean, as I said, I don't know if I said here, but and Susan, you know this. I think there's 4 people in the finance department, and one handles payroll, and we're running a $50 million business with that. And so they don't have the resources to do some analysis. So, being that some of us are retired, and some people are just better at doing multitasking than I, we've been able to help do some analysis over times, help people out in other areas to move things forward for them and come out with good decisions. And as Jenny mentioned, when we work collaboratively, it's strength for the whole town. Susan, you know that because I know that's your philosophy as well.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
And that's what this is. This is, it at least gives the right to have those conversations. And then again, it's saying the committee has to agree to that. This isn't a single person going out and doing something.
Okay. So this was a positive, in my opinion, this was a positive conversation. You listen to me and I listen to you, and that's all good. I hope I didn't disappear. My screen went funny, but hopefully you guys can still hear me.
My screen has been wavering all night, and I guess I should put my glasses on. But no, Susan, these are the conversations of why we're having these meetings.
Yep. No, I appreciate you guys doing this, really.
To take it in. Okay, I hand this last thing over because Frank has been patiently silent on this. If you don't know Frank, he runs TGS&A, and he can discuss minutes and agendas and how several of us had violated.
Well, thanks, Jack, and thank you to the committees for having me as a guest this evening. Someone used the phrase, this is a living document. And back when I was in the business world, if someone said it was a living document, you were in trouble. So this is an open document, as a work in progress. We have met with a couple committees, and we have a couple more committees to go. You'll note on the material you're reviewing, I believe you're reviewing the 9th of October version. And based on the suggestions we received from TGS&A last night and the suggestions that we're receiving this evening, there will surely be another document for review. The door is open, as they say. If you did not have a chance to raise a particular issue this evening, then please send Jack and me or me a note, and then we can discuss it further and see how it can get folded in to the final version. When I say final version, there will be a point where we have all the changes at hand and submit town council our work product, because as you will recall, the material that is reviewed by the RTM is always submitted by and prepared by town council and has been subject to its review. I will say that we have forwarded him a couple of heads up, as in, Wayne, here's where we are now with the document. It's a work in progress, and he will get a final copy for review prior to the time it comes back to rules again to be put on the agenda. So, Jack, thank you for walking us through this. I think you got us all the way to page 9, leaving me one point at the very end. Over the years, we've been accustomed to using the word draft minutes. And we found out from the Connecticut FOIA, there's no such thing as draft minutes. When the minutes are prepared after a meeting of 48 hours before that needs to be turned into town clerk for being made public, they're the minutes. Hence, there are no draft minutes. At the next meeting of the organization, people are given an opportunity to identify any corrections that need to be done, and in which case there's corrected minutes be discussing with town clerk as to how that should be indicated on the minutes that are up on the website. One of the problems we could have is that if someone goes back and looks at what was covered at a meeting, looks at the minutes, and fails to look at the next meeting when corrections are made, that original note should be annotated in some cases. These have been corrected. Well, with that, we put in the final paragraph that, consistent with FOIA, the town clerk gets copies of agendas and warnings, and then after the meeting is held, minutes should be sent to the town clerk, and as a courtesy to the moderator. The moderator, of course, can attend any of our meetings, and it just seems to be honorable to send the moderator a copy of the minutes at the same time it goes.
And this is where I'm going to interrupt for a second.
So there we are.
Wait, Frank, I'm shutting you down for a second. This is where Frank and I disagree. We are sending a copy of our agenda and the minutes to the moderator and the town clerk. The town clerk is supporting the RTM in this particular case. We do not report to the town clerk.
Agreed. I don't want to imply that at all. So, Jack, thank you for the very thorough walkthrough. If you have questions that you didn't have a chance to ask, let's get them out on the table now before we adjourn, or before you move on to other business that you have.
I do want to say, after I said that, Krista does a wonderful job supporting us in that. But many of us send to our agendas or warnings to the town clerk, who does the distribution, and the moderator is copied on that. But minutes should also be sent to the moderator of the RTM, and the town clerk gets it so that they can put it on. There is some discussion that's being pursued on how we register that minutes have been altered, because the state is doing something other than that. But that's for a date sometime in the future. But based upon it, are people comfortable? Because this is your document. This is almost like the charter of how the RTM is going to be run and operated, and hopefully lasts for the next 10 or 15 years until they destroy the next incinerator. So, I mean, that's the philosophy here. So, please go ahead, Cheryl.
Thank you, Jack, for doing this. And Frank, it's been an eye opener for me because I've been on this so long. What is the time frame on this now?
I'm going to give you. I'll give you the time frame. We're meeting with all the committees. It is tentatively on the I believe it's November 13th RTM agenda, because it's already been put there by rules. But if it isn't, if we haven't met with everyone and rules hasn't approved it to go on to that, then it will go on to December. However, all new members will get this as the draft for what the RTM is doing, as well as the revised scope of documents, which that may help people understand what's there. But that's the tentative. We want to make sure we're getting it right, or as right as we can.
Okay, so you're asking each committee to vote on this separately and then send that information to you and Frank, correct?
No, you don't need to vote.
If we have any concerns, questions, or additions to this, then how do we get this back to you before our committee votes on this?
Well, first of all, you don't have to vote. That's up to each committee. My committee
okay.
will not be voting. However, I'm more concerned about the second part. All right. My number is listed in the list, as is Frank's. I do pick up people who I don't know on my cell phone because I get calls from the kids from sometimes lines that they have that, work or something like that. Email, I answer to both my Gmail and my Gov account.
Okay.
But yes, if there's a concern, we want to hear it sooner rather than later.
If you can't find Jack, get in touch with me.
Yeah.
Easy.
If I may, Jack, one of the things I wanted to add is when we were on rules discussing this, I think the really good way of looking at this document is it defines the scope of our authority. And I think it's a really good thing because it clarifies what we have the authority to do, and what we don't have the authority to do, both as a body and as constituent committees that we're all on. So, and that clarity I think is really good. That's it.
Just to follow up on that, I just want to make sure that the wording is such that, back in 2020 when we had the disagreement with our council on our authority, does this document, I don't know, allow us to get our own counsel or some way in which that whole scenario could have been a little bit, made more workable instead of everybody getting their hair, so that we're in charge. And
I can't answer that other than whether or not we're going to have to set up a GoFundMe page to get our own counsel. But
that wasn't a solution. That was just like,
no, I understand. You have to understand. I'm making a joke. Don't solicit 27 phone calls because you didn't like what I said.
I would say in that situation, which was very bad, we would have had the authority to do that. There's no reason why we can't do that. I don't think we specified that as a particular point that we can do. But I think there's nothing to prevent us from doing that when and if, hopefully never, we have a situation where we're having a conflict of interest between the town council and the RTM, and that could happen hypothetically, but as it did back then.
I think that if you look at this document, it attempts to resolve the potential issues that were being risen at that time, and and so my answer is yes, it resolves it. All right. It doesn't say that we can hire town council because, we'll deal with that if we ever need to. And I hope for all the years that I'm here, we never have to do that because it means that we came to a point that we couldn't collaborate. And quite honestly, at the end of the day, this is a small town. And if we can't work together from all parties, then that's not a productive situation. But for what the issue was then, it resolves it.
good. Because that was a tricky wiki.
I could also note that this is Appendix B to the town code. It is not the charter, which has a little bit more lugubrious way of needing changes, in that it is town code. If we do mess something up, it can be corrected by a resolution at at a normal RTM meeting. Put it on the agenda and get it fixed. I recall about a couple of years ago when we made some revisions, we had a paragraph in the wrong place and we had to just do a mechanical change. Similarly with this, if something is in there sideways that we've all missed, we can put it straight. It's our document. Why we believe that town council's review we're hoping, or no, we expect that it won't be invasive and anything more than cosmetic and the wordsmithing, because it's our document. It's a document of the way we choose to run the RTM committees.
Well, may I hop in here and say thank you to you two? Appreciate you guys walking us through all of this. And if anybody has any more, yes, exactly. Thank you very, very much.
I will tell one other thing. Frank's cages things too much. We're not going to get this wrong, or we're not bringing it forward. That's number one.
Yeah.
Town council is aware of all the major changes we've done and hasn't provided an objection. This only needs to be passed by the RTM, and it is codifying how we're running our business. And that's what's important. And so whether or not somebody in 15 years decides that the whole world has changed and they need different committees and run it differently, and we're having meetings on our Apple Watches or chips someplace within us, that's their prerogative. But in the meantime, this is going to stand. And so I'm not worried about if something is slightly wrong or anything like that. We won't bring it forward if it's slightly wrong. So thank you all for your time.
Well, thank you.
You guys are still going to meet.
Can I hang on to your meeting space? Yes, we do.
Yes. So I need a motion, and I can't see all the RTM members, so shout it out. I need a motion to adjourn the F&B meeting.
Jenny.
Jack, I move that we adjourn the F&B meeting.
Okay. And a second, I had Beth in the move it. I have Malin doing it. I want to thank Iris for all the pleasure, and I understand you're not.
Don't leave, Iris.
Yeah, I know. This is
Heartbroken
probably
by
my
that.
last one. I'm going to take a break for a little bit. But
So-
I'll be watching y'all. I'll be watching.
All right, I know you will.
Come back soon, Iris.
So can we vote?
Counting on it,
Good night,
Iris.
my friends. Good night.
So
Thank you,
Adele, I
guys.
have one request. You need to call me so I can stop recording, or I'll keep it on and just mute.
Will do. I'll text you. It's going to be
Nope.
okay. It'll come back, I think. Here we go. We'll see how many of us are left. You staying, Barry? No. Didn't think so. Okay. Well, right.
Do we have a quorum?
I think
Yes.
we do.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
If Bill's still here.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here, Cheryl.
All right. We do have a quorum, but since we're not going to vote on this, you can see they're still working on it. I mean, so this to be continued clearly. And we there are a few updates, but I can see how, I don't know about you guys, but I've had about enough. So let's just do it quick. We got a quorum.
Adele, you're
I'd like
not
to-
on this. I don't have you on my screen.
Yeah.
I don't know if he took me off
We
with
can't
it. Can
see
you hear
We can
me?
hear you. We can't see you.
And I only have 30 minutes left to my battery here.
Okay. Well,
I
it's
hear
not
her
going to be
though. I
30.
hear her, Cheryl.
I know,
here.
I can hear her too, but I can't see her.
As long as you can hear me, that's all that
Okay.
matters. What I see. Yeah. Wait a minute. Here you go.
I can't see anybody, but I'm afraid to hit any buttons, so I'm just going to keep listening.
Okay, I'm back. I'm back now. I have no idea why I did that, but hey, it doesn't matter. Okay, we're going to just go right into our agenda, which is Sue Ellen, do you see who's left of us?
So we had more in the beginning. So do I record all that were here initially, or just who's here now?
Yes. Yes, I think so. I think
Okay.
so, because everybody was, yeah,
I
absolutely.
didn't have Patty here though. Did you see Patty?
I
She's
did not see, no, I did not see Patty.
Patty, Tony, and Andy are the only
Yes.
ones that are missing.
Patty
Yes.
texted me and said she couldn't get in the meeting, so.
Okay.
Well, I sent her the same email that everybody else got, so I sent it to everybody unless I messed somebody by accident, and I don't think I did. So that's the best we could do. What we're going to do is just go to vote on. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of September 13th?
I have an addition.
I make
Okay, Cheryl, let's make a motion to approve it first, and then you
I'll make the
make
motion.
your comment. Okay.
Susan
That
will
is
make the
Shannon.
motion.
Shannon makes the motion. Okay, now
No,
Cheryl.
Susan. Oh, whatever.
Oh,
Okay.
Susan, sorry.
That's fine. If Shannon did it, if her hand's up, that's fine. Whatever.
No, I don't see either. I see you, but no, I don't know. I think Shannon might be gone. Okay.
Okay, I'll make the motion. No big deal.
Okay, Susan. Oh, you know what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we still do it. Okay. Okay, Cheryl.
Okay, Sue Ellen, on the second page, second to the last paragraph,
Okay.
it says, in May, a member went to the commission, and then at the bottom, the last line should say, however, no signage was installed at Pear Tree this year.
Okay, so just add, however, no signage
was installed at Pear Tree this year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So it should read, Cheryl, just so that I make sure I have it right. So that paragraph should read, in May, a Park and Rec Committee member requested signage to Parks and Recreation Commission for no dogs, no smoking, no idling to be installed at Pear Tree Beach. However, no signage was installed at Pear Tree Beach this year.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any other additions or corrections? Okay. All in favor of accepting the minutes as corrected or amended? You just stick your hand up. That's why we can't see her.
Okay.
Who are we missing? Bill. No, we just do the ones we can see.
Bill
Anybody?
agrees.
Bill agrees.
Bill agrees.
And Shannon, are you there? Shannon might be gone. Okay.
So do
Bill
I have
agrees.
to put who was here to approve these, or can I just say it was
I
approved?
think they were just approved because, yeah,
Okay.
I don't think we usually do that. So, yeah. Okay. All right. We were going to have some working groups updates and committee updates. Patty's not here for, is anybody still here from the, I don't, yes. Alyssa, can you give an update for the play groups?
My battery is running. I'm
We're
going to
gonna
have to figure something out to plug my battery in. Hold. Damn it. Let me.
Can you hear
Alyssa?
me?
Yes, I can. We'll just do quick.
Yep. So just really quick. So we just had a meeting the other day where we had approved who we were going to be moving forward with for the final round of vendors, playground vendors. So we're making progress for Cherry Lawn. So that's moving along. Again, there's going to be a ribbon cutting ceremony for the official opening of McGann. Or McGuan, sorry. And so there's been a couple of back and forth dates, so we're just waiting because they want to make sure that the first selectman can be there, so we can give an update once we know the exact date. They had to move it around a bit, but we're making progress. And so the Cherry Lawn project is moving along smoothly, and we are moving along faster than we did with McGuan because we've got a little bit of experience under our belts this time. So once we have, a little bit more detail about exactly what we're going to be doing, because we're going to be doing the larger part and the smaller part of Cherry Lawn. So it's a really big project, but we're definitely using the same vendor for both.
Well, that's good.
And and it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a really impressive project, and everybody's been putting a lot into it. So I think people should be, pretty happy once we get to the finished project, the finished product. So, but more updates to come.
Okay, thank you. It's good. Progress is good. We have the invasives committee, and I know they've met, but and I don't think we can have an update on that because I don't think anybody's here, and Patty would be the one to do that one. So we'll move on. And has anything happened with monuments and ceremonies, Diane? That's what I thought. No meetings. And coastal waters, Susan?
They haven't met since we met. The last time they met, yep. So they haven't met yet.
Okay, super.
Just to say, Adele, that there was a meeting of monuments and ceremonies yesterday. Unfortunately, they were supposed to add me to their list, and I didn't see it till this morning that they had a meeting yesterday. So I'm going to have to get back to them again.
Next time.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just going to give a quick update because I went to the Great Island Advisory Committee meeting, and just to say that they met on the 20th of September, and they will meet again on the 18th, right before the Park and Rec Commission meeting. So if you're interested, it's an hour. They don't do it for longer than an hour. It's a good one. In fact, there was lots of information, and if you really want to know what's going on, you should listen to that meeting, which was scheduled. It was September 20th. They really are focused on getting people on the island, as you've heard, and so they're just a couple of things. They're still in process of the remediation of arsenic, with their little pilot project with the sunflowers to see if they can remove the arsenic from the ground. They're checking on the regulations for around the eagle's nest. How close, how far away do we have to stay from it? Just what the federal regulations are, or deep, really, and also just concentrating on working on the access plan. In other words, the access road, that it'll be 22 feet wide and we'll have a 5-foot sidewalk beside it, and that will be up to the circle, and the rest of it will be single lane and one way. The timeline for that is, they're pushing hard and to try to get it done for the 1st of July. So we'll see. They got to go through all the boards and get bid and construction. Good 3 months of construction, couple months of construction there too. So planning to have 200 200 parking spots in pocket spots. In other words, scattered throughout the site. But that's not their priority right now. The priority is the access road. The other maintenance priorities are to remove. There's an old transformer that was on site, and they need to. That's sort of the first thing they want to get done. There's a bid opening on the 19th for that. They expect it to be $25,000 to $30,000 to have a company remove that. There are 2 underground oil tanks that should be removed, and then they need to generally fix leaks and winterize things and minor things, many things which the Public Works Department can do themselves. But that's what they're concentrating on. The committee itself is about to divide itself up into sort of groups that will liaison with different staff members to sort of to use everybody's strengths to the best that they can. So that's what's upcoming. They haven't assigned that yet. I think that's it for the meetings. The committee updates. My
Adele?
report is yes.
I'd like to add something in here. I had gotten some phone calls from some of my constituents over the last couple of weeks regarding the flooding issue on Heights Road and the Public Works putting in a new Coltexes and holding tanks in the parking lot of the railroad station. So I called Ed Gentile, and I had a very lovely conversation with him. And because remember, a few years ago, they wanted to push all this water off Heights Road, under the railroad, under the thruway, and out towards Baker Park, and cut all the trees down. Some of you remember all that. So anyways, that was the fear that people had, that that was going to happen again. So when I talked to Ed, he and I had, like I said, a lovely conversation, and he assured me that this water is not leaving that area. It's staying right there in Call, Texas, underneath the parking lot. It'll be on the north side of the railroad by the depot, past the depot. So they're in the process now of digging that up and putting that in there. So I wanted to get it out there that they're not putting the water on Baker Park, so it's not going down there. So I just wanted to let everybody know that.
Thanks, Cheryl. Cheryl had been in contact with me about that, so I'm real pleased. And I saw that stuff stacked up there actually yesterday or today. Getting ready to put it in the ground, so which is good. Hopefully it helps. I know that what they did and then with the new development helped, but it still wasn't enough to take care of it. So
No.
hopefully this will. So let me move on to I'm going to just whip through a couple of the parks. Weed Beach. The Meadow and Trail Project update is that they're at P&Z, and they've been continued to the next P&Z meeting, which is on the 10th of October, and there's just one area that they're still answering questions on, and Dan Bix was going to get back to planning and zoning on, and that's about if any possible flooding in a storm, how it would affect near water lane. So, I mean, they had addressed it, but I think they wanted a little more information, so that's where that is. I expect that needs to be, the public hearing will be, take it back. They need to close it out by the 17th. So anyway, there'll be a decision made by then. I suspect there'll be a decision made on the 10th.
That was yesterday. The 10th of October.
It was. Well, I don't know. I didn't watch it. You're right.
Yeah.
That one I didn't watch.
That didn't come out right, Adele. I didn't mean to say it like that.
That's quite all right, because you're right.
But you wrote the report, obviously, and I apologize. That was
That's
not
all right.
meant to be snippy. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I can't see anyone. It's very frustrating. Sorry.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed it all went okay. Otherwise, I think it'll be continued to the next week. And the other bit from Weed Beach was the paddle tennis court, and that they're still waiting on their approvals. So they submitted them. Cherry Lawn painting on the tennis courts and pickleball courts where they painted it over the smiley face. I believe that is done, and from a distance it looked like it was done to me. The aerator was installed. Patty sent me a great picture of it. And I think the gazebo was dedicated on last weekend. I wasn't there, and I haven't heard from anybody. And as far as I know, it wasn't canceled, so I'm assuming it happened. Did anybody happen to go?
Yeah.
I didn't go, but I saw pictures because I volunteered at Rocktoberfest, and Pam Curie sent thank yous to everybody who volunteered at one of the two events, but she sent pictures of it. It looked beautiful.
Good.
It looked wonderful. So everybody
It was, I didn't know they were, had thought that there was a possibility it would be postponed, but thought actually in the end unlikely because the family was trying to be there, and that was when they could be there. So good.
It didn't look like it was pouring rain. It just looked like it might have been a little soggy, but she had a nice reception under the gazebo and stuff. So on the pictures.
Good. Excellent. Thank you. McGuan, the Little League Fields bid opener is tomorrow. I hope I got that date right. Anyway, fingers crossed. And the patio is still in process. They haven't finished it yet. They ended up doing, I think there was more to it. They ended up gutting the bathrooms, fixing the doors, and they're fixing a crumbling retaining wall too. So that's what's happening at McGuan. a Pear Tree Beach, the Pear Tree Beach Bathhouse Improvement Project with the budget that's in this year's budget for $50,000. The department was working with the BMP Construction on a realistic estimate for work, and so the commission will be discussing the scope of work that BMP contractors have suggested at their next meeting. So that's all I have for that one. The capital plan, the update. At the last commission meeting, they went through the draft capital plan that I sent to you guys, and we had two suggestions from our committee about a backstop, replacing the backstop at Holohunt Field, and at Cherry Lawn, a traffic study. And so they added that to their list of possible capital projects. I think they expanded the idea of the traffic study to sort of traffic study and sort of the layout of Cherry Lawn. Also, that was mentioned at the meeting is that they're checking, and they're still checking. They haven't got an answer back yet of the repaving of the driveway of the nature center, whether it's a park and rec responsibility or not, and that's a $240,000 estimate on that one. At Weed, the tennis backboard is in good shape. It probably needs to be painted, but they need to replace the floor in that. So that's what that is. That's what is in the capital budget. And they may add pickleball courts. They don't know where, but it may get added to the 6-year plan. The commission is creating a committee for pickleball expansion. Pickleball court expansion, and Chris Taylor is the chairman, and so he said he'd be in touch. He hasn't yet, but I think he will be in touch. They would want us to participate, at least a few of us. The Parks Tour is November 11th. We'll start at Cherry Lawn and then go to McGuan, Baker, Holohan, Weed, and Pear if they have time. And I can't remember the time they said it would start. It's usually around 8:30.
What was the date? I'm sorry, Adele, what was the date?
The 11th of November. It's a little late. Last year they did it in the end of September, which was really good because it gave you a good chance to think about to evaluate for capital projects. But it just didn't work there with everybody's schedule set. This is the date that they came up with. So that's when it's a Saturday, and it inevitably rains.
It's rained every weekend since I don't know when.
Well, maybe it won't. Maybe by then it won't. Who knows? Yeah. The contract we're going to have to meet again. The contract for Public Works and Park and Rec employees will need to be voted on, but we can't do that until after. First, they have to vote, the employees, and then it has to go to the Board of Selectmen, and then after that, we can schedule a meeting. And so this will be on the November 13th RTM meeting schedule. So anticipate you'll hear from me. It'll be a joint meeting with F&B and Public Works, I believe. I don't know if it'll be virtual or in person. I don't know yet. So, but look out for me getting in touch. And then lastly, I'm sorry we've lost Shannon because this is her last meeting, and I wanted to say thank you and how much we enjoyed having her. Maybe she'll watch the rest of this and listen and hear the thank you for her efforts, and we hope she'll come back soon. And good luck to everybody that's running. I think there are quite a few of us on the ballot, and hope to see everybody back at our next meeting in November. And that's all I have, ladies.
Okay.
Anybody have any new business or any other business?
I can just tell you, having gone to the Rocktoberfest, that they did a spectacular job. and they had probably less attendance than they might have if it was on Saturday, but they rescheduled it because of the rain to Sunday. But they just pulled together a really incredible event. And I know they've done it in the past, but this one had a lot more bells and whistles from what I heard. And they did a great job. So
I agree with Kim. My family was there the whole day. We had so much fun. The music was so
the music was
fun.
great.
It was kind of 90s country at one point, which this Dallas girl was grooving out on. It was super duper. They should keep doing it. It's super.
Those are all Pam's
Well, that's good.
choices, she said. And one of them was a substitute band because they lost an original band, and Pam got a new band on Friday afternoon to do it for Sunday. So they just pulled together an incredible event. So
Well, thank you for volunteering. I really appreciate it. If I'd have been in
Yeah, it was
town,
fun.
yeah, it would have been a good thing to do.
You reminded me. I volunteered in the kids' game area, and it just reminded me of what it will be like to be a grandparent someday. Watching these kids taking these toys and like smashing them, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I'm so glad I don't have little kids. Sorry to any of you who have little kids. It was fun though.
That's good. Well, thanks everybody. And may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay,
That
so
was Cheryl, and I saw Kim. All in favor?
Bill agrees.
Bill agrees. Thank you, Bill. Good night, everybody, and thanks for hanging in
Thank
there.
you,
That
Del.
was a long,
Okay.
yeah. Anyway, and
Night, everybody.
anybody that has
Night.
anything else they want to say about the what Jack and Frank were talking about, just let me know or let them know. Just CC me too while you're at it. But
Great.
they're
Thank you.
amenable for any changes. Thanks a lot. Good night.
Okay.
Night,
Bye.
everybody.
Night.
Good night.